the funniest way you exposed an idiot. I got suspended from school because my classmate James kept stealing my homework. At first I thought we just happened to keep getting the same scores, because that's bound to happen with multiple choice questions. But then it became stealing my essays too. I wrote multiple outlines that I had to review and revise with my teacher. The night we were supposed to turn it in, I got an email from my teacher saying, plagiarize another student's essay and you'll get a 0. On the email, someone reacted to it with a laughing emoji. It was James. Turns out last night, James sent in a more polished and revised version of my essay. While we had the same essays, James was better. Our teacher praised him for his diction and strong thesis statement, while I had to rewrite an entirely new essay. When it was time for midterm exams, our teacher gave us OpenNote and online access for it. Still, I received an email saying that my written responses were copied word for word from James's midterm. I vented about it to a couple of classmates, but nobody wanted to vouch for me. I showed my teacher the version histories of my assignments, proving that I did them first, but she didn't care. But then I finally figured out how James was doing it all. I was going to sleep one night, and then at 2 in the morning, I don't know what woke me up, but I jolted awake. I found my little brother, who's 9 years old, fiddling with my computer. "What are you doing, bud?" I asked from my bed. He jumped up saying, "Nothing. I was just looking for games," which is weird, because he looked through my school computer, and even he knows there's no games allowed on them. He knew I caught him doing something, but he walked away, and I was too tired to ask him more questions. When my brother was sleeping the next night, however, I looked through his phone. Turns out, James was giving my little brother Pokemon packs to get my assignments. James's little brother was friends with mine, and he'd been taking advantage of him ever since he'd been struggling in school. Instead of just talking to James, I had a few tricks up my sleeve. We had a final paper due that was worth 50% of our final grade. James was already texting my brother to get ready, and that he would give my little brother a Prismatic Evolutions Pokemon box if he successfully stole my final paper. After I wrote my final paper, I submitted a completely obvious AI-generated essay. James wouldn't have noticed that I didn't write it because all he cared about was replacing my name on the header. I even added fake AI sources for my citations. Just to seal the deal, I turned on my webcam so that my brother would be recorded when he stole my paper. On the school bus, I looked at what I recorded, and I caught my brother red-handed. He was literally FaceTiming James as James directed him on what to do to steal my paper. That morning, I anxiously waited for my teacher to just say something to one of us. In homeroom, James dapped me up like we were still friends, but his hands were extra sweaty. It was gross, but I knew he was guilty. When our teacher walked in, she didn't greet us as usual, but she looked at me and gave me a wink. She started off by asking the class, "Who here wants a 100? Obviously, everyone raised their hands and said, "Me." She then said, "Okay then, I'm going to randomly select one of you to do an on-the-spot presentation on their final paper. If your presentation is good, I'll give everyone an automatic 100. She then put her hand in a bucket where she had, supposedly, all of our names on pieces of paper. After shuffling for what felt like forever, she pulled out a name, James. James looked around for someone to save him. He even darted his eyes at me. He stood up in front of the class and started bumbling like an idiot. He said stuff like, "Hello, yes, the thing most people don't realize about the president is that many people had to all pick one." Someone yelled out, "Yeah, that's how voting works, bud." James kept on trying to form words about his essay, but he just ended up crying. The teacher looked like she was going to comfort him, but she told him, "How about you wash up in the bathroom and then I'll meet you in the principal's office." James literally cried more, but nobody cared. They were all mad because he was the reason they didn't get 100s on their papers. But then out of nowhere, our teacher said, "I'm going to pick one more name from the bucket. This is your last shot, everyone." I already knew what she was doing. When she called my name, I was ready. I had my printed out paper in hand, and I started breaking down my thesis statement, and I must have gone on for 20 minutes basically teaching my class. I wanted to drill in the fact that I was honest about my work all this time. When I wrapped it up, our teacher said, "There you go, class. I'll give you all a B+ minimum, even if your paper is bad." What many of you don't know is James will be suspended for plagiarism. If any of you ever attempt to plagiarize, remember today. After class was dismissed, my teacher told me, "I had a feeling for a while that you weren't cheating. I have to ask, how did James keep stealing your assignments?" So I whipped out my phone and showed her my brother stealing everything for James, and she just started laughing. She apologized and promised me that James better hope Pokemon cards will bail him out from getting expelled.